London, February 11th, 2026. The ink wasn't even dry before the war exploded, and this time, it wasn't whispers behind palace gates. It was open season on the House of Windsor. It was supposed to be peace. A white flag over Montecito. A quiet, structured agreement signed inside a sterile mediation room born from the Windsor, California Custodial Safeguard Act. 2 supervised visitations per month. 0 travel for Archie and Lilibet without written consent. A 60-40 split on education. Clean, clinical, control. But before the morning sun could settle over the Brentwood legal complex, the illusion shattered. Meghan Markle didn't just reconsider the deal, she detonated it. Less than 24 hours after signatures were placed, her legal team filed a blistering 72-page counterstrike that turned a private family restructuring into a global custody inferno. This was no polite disagreement over calendars. This was scorched earth. Her counsel stood before cameras and reframed the parenting plan as a containment strategy, not cooperation, not compromise. Containment. The accusation was nuclear, institutional coercion cloaked as family concern. According to the filing, royal legal offices, allegedly guided by Princess Anne, had orchestrated pressure tactics, media briefings, and psychological leverage to force a lopsided agreement. The fairy tale had officially mutated into forensic warfare, but the real shock wasn't the attack on the monarchy. It was the surgical strike against Harry. For the first time in a courtroom, long-whispered allegations surfaced in black and white legal ink. Requests for a full forensic reassessment of Harry's mental stability. References to disappearances between 2017 and 2019 during high-profile engagements. Allegations of verbal aggression while intoxicated in early 2018. Suddenly, the man who had once spoken publicly about healing and therapy was being clinically dissected by the very narrative he helped build. And here's the question that burned through legal circles like wildfire. If these incidents were real, why weaponize them now? Why 2026? Why after a signed agreement? Because this wasn't just about custody. It was about leverage. The filing introduced what Meghan's team called the 5 evaluative pillars: income, housing stability, parenting history, spousal conduct, and mental health. Under California law, maternal caregiving carries weight. The argument was clear. In California, a prince is just another father. A duchess is just another mother. Titles don't shield anyone. And Meghan wasn't asking for small adjustments. She demanded $187,000 per month in spousal support, citing career disruption tied to royal entanglement and reputational damage. The message was sharp. She built the post-royal brand. He symbolized it, but while Meghan's team pressed submit, Harry's legal strategy was already in motion. A 17-page preemptive defense had quietly been filed, and inside it were documents that changed the temperature of the room. School withdrawal letters signed in December 2025 without his consent. Travel planning to Doha and Dubai scheduled for early 2026. Brand visibility notes referencing the children in connection with Middle Eastern partnerships. It suggested something deeply uncomfortable, that while Meghan accused Harry of using the children symbolically, internal planning showed discussions of positioning them within a multi-million-dollar marketing framework abroad. And that's when the contradictions began stacking up. Was this a mother fighting an empire, or a strategist preparing a new corporate frontier? She demanded a clean room renegotiation under a U.S.-appointed child welfare mediator. She wanted any informal or formal guardianship influence from Prince William or Princess Anne withdrawn immediately. That move directly challenged the Windsor, California Reciprocal Accord of 2024, a treaty her own advisors had once endorsed to protect title continuity. Public sentiment fractured overnight. In America, sympathy lingered. In Britain, patience evaporated. Then came the financial filings. 87 pages, not a balance sheet. An autopsy. Joint credit lines between 2022 and 2025 revealed $2.3 million in personal purchases, nearly $500,000 on high-end fashion houses, $670,000 in private aviation bookings, over $300,000 in media training and image rehabilitation. Cross-reference statements suggested certain luxury expenditures had been funneled through foundation sub-accounts. A former accountant's deposition claimed invoices were relabeled as philanthropic alignment to mask personal indulgence. The numbers weren't just large, they were destabilizing. Then offshore elements surfaced. Cayman-linked accounts, a shell entity registered in the British Virgin Islands, $890,000 in transfers from Dubai-based event organizers between August and December 2025 that allegedly didn't appear in tax declarations. When the palace caught wind, they didn't argue publicly. They activated the 2023 Crown Transparency Statute and forwarded documentation to the serious fraud office that inside Archwell, morale collapsed. Senior figures resigned within 24 hours. Hollywood partners began reevaluating 2026 2026 projects. The custody battle was no longer the headline. Financial integrity was, and just as the narrative teetered, the British monarchy recalibrated. Silence, not defensive silence, strategic silence. Princess Catherine released a 90-second video from Grey House. The residents prepared for Archie and Lilibet. No accusations, no bitterness, just calm assurance that whatever role she was called to play would be carried with grace. 11 million views in 8 hours. Stability versus spectacle. That then, Lady Louise Windsor arrived in the United States under diplomatic seal, accompanied by child welfare officers and a trauma psychologist. Her mission, a welfare review under the Windsor, California Reciprocal Accord. Because of the treaty's sovereign minor provisions, her presence was legally untouchable. Meghan's team attempted to block access, citing foreign custodial interference. The treaty made it bulletproof. That meanwhile, Prince William convened financial officers to place Windsor-linked trademarks and royalties under escrow review. Oxygen to the Archwell brand tightened. And then, hidden inside encrypted servers, forensic teams discovered something that changed everything. A 42-page document dated January 18, 2026. Project Mirror. Not a hypothetical, not a mood board. A tactical relocation manual outlining permanent movement of the children to Qatar under honorary sponsorship provisions that would effectively shift jurisdiction. Draft enrollment documents for a Doha-based school. A media contract proposal with a Qatari entertainment subsidiary offering exclusive life access to the children. Metadata showed development spanning 5 months. Access logs under Meghan's administrative login. When Project Mirror was read into court record, silence fell heavy. Harry reportedly went pale. This wasn't ideological disagreement anymore. It was potential jurisdictional bypass. Intent mattered under international child abduction conventions, even preemptively. Meghan's team argued it was a creative exercise, a hypothetical brand pathway for global expansion. But private flight logs between California and Doha complicated that narrative. Public support plummeted within 48 hours. And the Windsor machine didn't shout. It documented. Emergency orders followed. Passports surrendered. Digital contact monitored. Psychological evaluations mandated. The court wasn't evaluating fairy tales, it was assessing risk. The stage was now set for February 18th. The day the mirror would break. February 18th, 2026. The day the mirror shattered, not in whispers, not in headlines, but under oath. By the time the sun rose over Santa Barbara, the courthouse had already transformed into a global pressure chamber. News vans lined the street. Legal analysts rehearsed predictions. And inside courtroom 4B, the temperature wasn't dramatic, it was clinical. That's what made it lethal. Meghan walked in without spectacle. No royal jewelry, no symbolic colors, just controlled silence. 4 attorneys, 1 digital strategist. The posture of someone who still believed she could outmaneuver the machine. Prince Harry sat opposite her, not as a duke, not as a royal exile, but as a father who now understood how close he had come to losing everything. Justice Maya Caldwell wasted no time. This wasn't about narrative equity anymore, it was about documented intent. The forensic team took the stand first. Calm, methodical, unemotional. They broke down Project Mirror not as gossip, not as speculation, but as a time-stamped digital architecture. 42 pages, 5 months of edits, access logs tied to Meghan's administrative login, draft school enrollment forms in Doha opened 14 times in 1 week, an encrypted message to a Qatari legal consultant requesting sovereign guarantees of custodial non-extradition. When the judge asked a single question, why would non-extradition protections be necessary in a hypothetical plan? The room reportedly froze. Meghan did not answer immediately. Her counsel attempted to redirect. Hypothetical scenario, brand development exercise, protection against institutional racism, future contingency. But contingency planning doesn't usually require aviation logs and shell company bookings. Private flight records showed 3 round trips between California and Doha in late 2025. The defense narrative began to fracture under its own weight. Then came the financial reckoning. The court reviewed the $2.3 million in joint credit expenditures, the $480,000 in luxury fashion acquisitions, the $670,000 in private aviation, the $310,000 in media training, transfers to linked accounts, the Cayman shell entity, the $890,000 in undeclared event payments. Harry's legal team didn't argue morality, they argued misallocation. They presented cross-referenced American Express and SBC statements aligned against Archwell Foundation spending logs. The implication was devastating. devastating. Donor-adjacent funds allegedly being redirected toward personal image management and international expansion. This was no longer about optics. It was about fiduciary responsibility. Then, the psychological evaluations entered the record that both parents had undergone independent assessments. Harry's prior vulnerabilities were acknowledged. Yes, there had been documented stress episodes between 2017 and 2019, but the evaluators concluded he had engaged in sustained therapy and demonstrated stable parenting commitment post-2022. Meghan's evaluation focused on strategic behavior patterns, high-functioning, media-aware, protective of personal branding. The evaluators stopped short of diagnosing instability, but they emphasized one recurring concern: unilateral decision-making in high-stakes scenarios involving the children. That's when Justice Caldwell leaned forward. She referenced the February 11th agreement, the immediate counterstrike, the spousal support demand of $187,000 per month, the relocation blueprint, the escrowed Windsor linked assets, the sudden surge in offshore structuring. And then she delivered the sentence that would echo across every ticker and newsroom: you cannot weaponize motherhood and reject responsibility in the same breath. That the ruling that followed was precise, devastating. Final, that the February 11th agreement would remain the permanent custodial framework. 2 supervised visitations per month, 0 international travel without mutual written consent, backed by a $5 million relocation bond. That all relocation attempts outside U.S. or UK jurisdiction were strictly prohibited. Meghan was ordered to reimburse $1.3 million to the frozen joint estate for misallocated Archewell funds within 90 days. The Archewell Foundation itself was ordered dissolved pending charitable trust review. Control of the children's primary social media assets, including the @Archie account with 3.2 million followers, was transferred to a Royal Child Welfare Trust entity. And then came the professional freeze. For 10 years, Meghan was barred from launching any commercial entity, trademark, or media product using the terms Arch, Sussex, Windsor, or Lilibet in connection with monetized ventures during an active custodial period. Institutional assets, the court ruled, could not be leveraged for private commercial gain amid custody conflict. Observers described Meghan as stone, not defeated, not emotional, just motionless. Harry didn't celebrate. He didn't look triumphant. He looked tired. At 1:23 p.m., Meghan exited the courthouse quietly. No press conference, no staff entourage. A mid-range vehicle driven by a private assistant. The global icon, who once walked into royal life beneath cathedral arches, left the California courthouse under judicial restriction. Within hours, Windsor moved. The Royal Gazette updated trustee listings. Meghan's name was removed from remaining royal advisory positions. The Grey House Protection Act was ratified, ensuring Archie and Lilibet would remain under structured guardianship supervision when on British soil. But the most symbolic blow came not from the palace, but from Harry. A handwritten statement appeared on the royal website that signed not as Duke, not as Prince Henry Charles Albert David. I will never be perfect, but I will be present. I will be a father before I am anything else. It was a quiet renunciation of spectacle. The money war was over. The custody war was settled. The brand war had collapsed. In the weeks that followed, the silence became louder than any interview ever could. The drones disappeared from Montecito. Hollywood partnerships paused. The planned 2026 solo memoir project stalled. The 10-year trademark restriction created what insiders described as a digital cage, immense name recognition, 0 narrative leverage. Without Archewell, without title-based branding, without relocation flexibility. The Sussex aura evaporated. For Harry, the path forward wasn't glamorous. It was reconstructive. He retreated behind institutional corridors, not as a returning conqueror, but as a father seeking structured sanctuary. The Sandringham Declaration on Sovereign Minor Protections ensured the children would retain dual-world access, but under institutional guardrails. Archie and Lilibet became the quiet center of the resolution, shielded from documentary storyboards, removed from corporate blueprints. Their passports held by court-appointed authority. Their futures stabilized through oversight rather than spectacle. History will debate motives. It will debate power dynamics. It will debate whether this was institutional protection or institutional dominance. But what cannot be debated is the outcome. The Windsor machine did not scream. It did not retaliate in tabloids. It did not trade interviews for sympathy. It waited. It documented. It activated treaties. It outlasted. February 18th, 2026 will not be remembered as the day of explosive confrontation. It will be remembered as the day documentation defeated narrative. The mirror didn't just reflect ambition. It reflected overreach. And when it cracked, it didn't echo in Montecito. It echoed in a courtroom where law, not legacy, made the final decision. The gates closed. The children remain. And for the first time in nearly a decade, the House House of Windsor stood not louder, but steadier.